Welcome to the podcast of Missionaries of the Precious Blood, United States Province, where we delve into the heart of our organization's mission and values. Missionaries of the Precious Blood, founded in 1815 by St. Gaspar de Buffalo, is a Catholic religious congregation dedicated to spreading God's love and mercy through prayer, community, and service. Our podcast serves as a platform to share the stories, reflections, and insights of our members as they strive to live out the charism of reconciliation and redemption. Tune in, be inspired, and become part of our mission to make God's love known to all. Our guest today is Nancy Clisbee. Nancy is a companion with Missionaries of the Precious Blood and has been for several years. Nancy, welcome. Thanks for being our guest today. Could you tell us a little bit about the companion program, if it is actually called a program, about what companions are with Missionaries of the Precious Blood and how you became involved?
The companions are a group of lay people who are associated by covenant with the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. And so in the U.S. province, we have the priests, we have the brothers, and we have the companions, who are lay people of all different occupations, all different ages, spread out around the country.
Nancy, can I ask, how long have you been a companion and what inspired you to become one?
Well, I've been a companion for about 16 years. And I will say you get an invitation. So if you don't necessarily just up and decide to become a companion. The way membership in companions usually takes place is that you receive an invitation or a call from someone who already knows your work, your heart. And I had been involved in a number of things in the parish. And so, and then when you feel that you do want to become a member of the companions, then there's a pretty lengthy formation period of a year, sometimes 2 years, and then eventually you make a covenant with the province. Why do I belong? Well, the precious blood spirituality is what drew me in and keeps me in. They totally affirm what I believe about social justice. They affirm the work that I do. They inspire me to keep going. And they provide wonderful support with meetings. We have companion meetings about once a month. And they are a combination of hospitality and faith sharing and prayers and input from the province.
Okay, great. Now, let's back up just a little bit. Can you tell me what the formation period is like? What's that consist of?
Well, during the formation period, this is a pretty serious commitment. You're going to make a covenant that you write out and say what your mission with the precious blood is going to be. So the formation period gives you information about the history of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, going back to St. Gaspar del Buffalo and their history in the United States. Also, a lot of information about their charism, about the symbols of the precious blood, about a number of figures working in the province today and where they're located in the United States, just all about the missionaries.
Okay. All right. And that period can take anywhere, you said, from 2 to 3 years. Is that correct?
Well, I would say usually, and everybody does it slightly different. I would say for the most part, it's always a year. And for some groups, it may be a little bit longer.
And is someone bringing you along during that period? Did you become a companion by yourself, or were there a group of people who became?
There were a small group that came along together, kind of a cohort of 4 or 5 people sometimes more, depends on, what the circumstances are for any given companion group, who will study together and pray together, and then usually make their covenants together.
Okay, and you touched on it a little bit. What is it about the companion groups that you enjoy? From both, either from a spiritual side or a social side. What is it about them that you enjoy?
Well, I enjoy these people just as people. And I will say I'm one of the co-conveners of this St. Joseph group. So I know everybody pretty well, and I've belonged to that group for a long time. Um, we get together, we have fun, we have food, so that's all great. We pray for each other. We support each other like a family when anybody has difficulty. Good um, conversation about important topics, about motivation, about topics of interest in the world, um, about immigration, about reaching out to the margins, about reaching out to the poor.
So you mentioned that the spirituality of the precious blood echoes your own opinions on social justice. Can you expand on that a bit? What is it? What is it about the companion program? How do you contribute to, or how do you comment on social justice?
Outreach to the margins is one of their charisms, of course. And I was a lifelong teacher, and always have had an interest in helping people. Um, Currently, and for the last 15 years, I've worked in immigration. And that is such a big issue in the United States today. Um, the Before the two provinces came together, the Kansas City province had some corporate statements, and one of them was calling for immigration reform. And so that is a topic that I am involved with, not reform per se myself, that's a big order, but working with immigrants on a day-to-day basis, that's what I do. And so this really sort of speaks to my soul.
I know that you recently, within the past couple months, had an immigration immersion experience there at St. Joseph. Tell us about that.
Well, it sort of stemmed from a year ago. I worked together with Father Dave Matz and Gabino Zavala in kind of a little immigration particular ministry. And both of those and I are on the JPIC committee, the Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Committee. So we are part of that committee in cooperation with the Border Servant Corps. We offered a trip to El Paso to see the wall and all of that stuff, and it was a very, very instructive experience. We did a lot of things. We met with Ruben Garcia of the Annunciation House. Um,
Explain a little bit about Annunciation House.
Annunciation House is the, I think, original and strongest social service helping organization at that part of the border. They assist people arriving newly in the United States with a place to stay, with food, and with assistance in moving on to wherever it is that they are going. Most of the folks that they assist are asylum seekers, and so they will be coming in. They need to move on to someone who is sponsoring them. They work in tandem with other social services at the border, one being Border Servant Corps, to help people get to where they're going, assist them.
Okay. Okay. So we, before I interrupted you, you were talking about your trip to the border, and you went to an Annunciation House. What was your experience at the border?
We got to experience a number of different social service situations and areas. At one point, we created a meal and took it to a place uh, where immigrants who were just waiting to move on to new places um, were housed overnight for a few days. Um, we visited a couple of churches which welcome folks as they newly arrive. And of course, many, many folks speaking Spanish, although at Border Servant Corps, we saw their large hall where they welcome folks in who have just come across the border. And of course, it's totally amazing. There are folks not just from Central America, but now from all over the world, because immigrants who are wanting to escape hardship where they are coming in. They're coming into the northern part of South America and then making their way north to the United States, which all immigrants seek as a place of shelter and, the good life. That's where folks want to come. So those people are all filtering through El Paso and other places.
There is a huge national debate about immigration. What are your feelings on the topic? Speaking as a precious blood companion, there are people who say, we need to let them in. They're seeking asylum. There are people who say, they're flooding our system. They're flooding our healthcare system, affecting our way of life, employment, things like that. What's your opinion on immigration? Speaking as a precious blood companion.
I believe that all people deserve a safe place to live. And I believe that America has vast resources. But at the same time, I acknowledge, and just about everyone does too, that the system for admitting folks is terribly broken. The immigration laws and mechanisms for bringing people into the United States are a mess. There needs to be a more orderly way to accept people. And I can say that because I work with so many immigrants, and the stories that I have heard, some of them are horrific. And people often say, well, they're just coming here for economic benefit. Well, let's stop and think. What did our great grandparents come here for? I come from Irish immigrants. They had no way to make money. They couldn't get any land. And the Irish felt that if you didn't have any land, you couldn't ask someone to marry you. And so they came here for the very same reasons. And my continual statement is, we are them, they are us. There's no reason for folks to be so vitriolic and negative about immigrants coming to the United States.
Can you tell me some of the I guess the more dramatic or some of the more compelling situations, stories that you've heard from immigrants?
Over the years, I have had asylum seekers, and in addition to that, I have had refugees. And some of those refugees have been from areas like Sudan, Burma, countries all over the world. I remember having a conversation with one woman who was just so completely damaged by her experiences in her home country. She actually picked up my hand and she said, Nancy, this hand is good. This hand is good. And she picked up her own hand and she said, this hand only for harm, only for bad. And she had made that her reality. That had been made her reality. Folks, women who probably had suffered rape, women who had seen their husbands murdered in front of them, families that had long been separated. There was a student that we had in class, and she had a bad limp. And I was actually substituting in her class, and I asked the teacher, why did she limp? And her teacher said, I have never asked her, and she has never said. Well, just by happenstance, one night while I was in that class, we talked about the teacher coming back and she was going to use a walker. And this student spoke up and said, oh, I had one of those for a while after I was shot. But stories like that, and stories about, we have young men and young men from Central America whose families have been convinced by the folks that we call coyotes that if the family will only pay for the coyote to take their son to the United States, that son will make great money and send it back to the parents. And the parents believe they're totally doing a wonderful thing for their son, or well, it's not daughter, it's son, praise the Lord. But anyway, and those sons get here, and all of a sudden that coyote wants $100 every 2 weeks. And that child has got to get busy working. And sometimes well-meaning people will see these young folks working and call the authorities and get that job shut off. Well, that only terrifies these young people even more, because they have been told that if they don't send the coyote $100 every 2 weeks or whatever the deal is, they will kill that father back in Guatemala or wherever he is. And it's true, it does happen. So what kind of pressure is that for a child to be in? And, then that feeds into the school systems, because here we have these young people who possibly haven't been able to go to school since they were maybe in the third grade. They come in as what we would say juniors in high school. There is no way that they can do junior level high school work, yet we are forcing them to be at school from 8 until 3, when the only thing on their mind is they've got to make money, they've got to make money, they've got to make money.
Wow. Okay, that's very compelling. That's exceptionally compelling stuff. So you mentioned that you are involved in the Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Committee. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, that's a group of about 8 folks from around the country. We have precious blood priests, we have some companions, we have a precious blood sister.
What's your mission as far as that committee is concerned?
Our mission is justice and peace, and so we work on the issues of gun violence, death penalty, immigration, welcome of LGBTQ communities. So we have all of those sort of on our plate. We try to do some writing for the Precious Blood publications. We arrange activities sometimes, and like the immersion that was held in St. Joe and the immersion that was at El Paso. We try to have activities when we can, but react to things that happen in the world regarding those issues and keep people informed about them.
So how has being a Precious Blood companion changed you or benefited you?
Well, I think to an extent it makes me feel less helpless, because I have worked with immigrants for so long that I can't fix everybody and I can't help everybody. But when I hear about the problems of immigration, I know that I can't help everybody, but I can help someone. So I find it empowering. I also find it kind of horrifying, because you do hear what's going on many fronts. Missouri still has the death penalty, which is on its way out, thankfully, in most of the United States. It just gives me a an ability for action.
So, how do the companion groups align with the overall charism and mission of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood?
Well, that is their charism as well, is reconciliation, hospitality, and outreach to the margins. And in some companion groups, absolutely everyone is doing their own work, and that is completely acceptable. Some groups will adopt particular activities that they do as a group. Um, in our group, we have a number of people who work together to serve dinner once a month at a homeless shelter. In fact, we're doing that tonight. But people are involved in all different kinds of things. And, we everybody knows our charisms are hospitality, outreach to the margins, and reconciliation. And of course, we discuss those issues one way or another.
What is your advice for anyone who would be interested in becoming a companion, exploring a companion group?
I think becoming a companion would be a benefit and a joy for anyone who has um, a heart for social justice.
Okay. And if anyone is interested in becoming a companion, they can visit our website at preciousbloodus.org /companions. And just fill out the form, and someone will be in touch with you. Nancy, any kind of parting shots as far as the companion program and what you see as its future?
Well, I see its future as pretty well unlimited. We are co members of the province with the Precious Blood priests and the Precious Blood brothers. And to an extent, the companions as a whole have a pretty wide reach into a lot of areas. I think it has been a great way for the missionaries to expand their membership.
Nancy, thank you very much. I appreciate you spending a few minutes with us, and it sounds like you are a big proponent of the companion program.
I am.
So thank you very
I
much.
am.
It's been a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much. My pleasure.
Thank you.